Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 318 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I could not be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think can be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about Social Security, and specifically the fact that Social Security is getting quite the boost this coming year. And so I want to talk about why that is. I want to talk about what that's going to look like, maybe for your check, and then the implication that it's going to have, or the multiple implications that it's going to have for us, for the next generation of those who end up, retiring and having Social Security and things of the like, and what it means for us when it comes to our retirement savings. So stick around for a discussion of all that and more in today's episode. Before we get started, though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions, and you and I can begin working together, pushing towards your long-term financial goals and ultimately pushing you on towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual watching or listening to this show on a day-to-day basis. Now, last week there was an announcement, and the announcement was what the cost of living adjustment, so you'll hear this called the COLA, right? COLA, cost of living adjustment, is going to be for Social Security next year. Right, and it is the highest cost of living adjustment since 1982. And this is welcome news for retirees, obviously, right? If you're somebody who's receiving Social Security or even relying on Social Security for helping to pay your bills or whatever it may be, right? This is a good thing. This is a good thing for you. This is something that is only going to benefit you because the prices of goods and services is obviously rising, right? And so this will help to alleviate any type of financial hardship that you may be going through, or any difficulty you have with paying for things as the prices increase. Right? So this can be a good thing for retirees. But what about everybody else? What about the system as a whole? What about what this means on an underlying basis? So beneficiaries in 2022, they will receive a 5.9% boost to their checks. Right, so if you were making $1,000, now you're making $1,059. If you were making $2,000, then now you're going to be making what? $2,118. Right, so this is a relatively substantial increase to checks. Now, this is up from the 1.3% benefit increase for 2021. Right, so this is a big jump from the cost of living adjustment that retirees got this past year. Now, even so, a 5.9% increase will only bring about $92 more to the average monthly retirement benefit. $92 more. That's it, right? That's all that we're saying the cost of living has increased over the course of this year for retirees. Take it or leave it, right? Whether or not that's true, but I would say that obviously this is just based on some fixed amount of money that you're already getting paid in Social Security. So $92 more relative to that, but relative to what it costs to live, $92 is likely going to be a very large understatement. Now, in the past 10 years, the average annual increase in the Social Security benefit of retirees was 1.65%, according to the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. In 3 of the past 12 years, the COLA was zero. Right? So we're getting a 5.9% increase this coming year, and we've seen recent increases of as little as zero. Now, many retirees have noticed that what they pay at the grocery store, the doctor's office, is going up faster than their Social Security checks. Well, of course, right? Because this is going to be a trailing measure. The Social Security checks are going to go up in response to whatever type of increases in prices that you see, whatever type of inflationary pressures that you see. They're not going to be able to predict what inflation is going to be. They just have to react to what inflation is. Okay. When you talk to a lot of retirees, they'll very quickly complain about, my inflation rate is higher than the government says it is. And in some ways, they're not wrong, right? In some ways, retirees are not wrong because the inflation rate that is stated takes a lot of different things into account. But maybe some of the things that you're actually purchasing are some of the hardest hit by inflation, and things that you buy at the grocery store are right now increasing in price, and that's a fair assessment. Going and buying gas, even though that's not a big piece of inflation, the gas prices have increased. So if a retiree is trying to drive somewhere, it's more expensive to drive somewhere. It's more expensive to operate your vehicle. It's more expensive to go to the grocery store. It's more expensive to buy just different goods and services. Okay, so this year's increase is generous. It seems generous, right? But it may be just a one-off event. The last time the COLA came close to being this high was 2009, when there was a 5.8% increase. However, the following 2 years, the adjustment was zero, meaning beneficiaries saw no benefit increase. Okay, a similar scenario could play out again, and the reason that this would be is if you see some, just real big decreases in the inflationary pressures that we see right now. Okay, this year's COLA could be offset by a smaller than expected annual adjustments in the future as prices return to normal. Now, this may be the case, right? This might be something that is true, and I would guess that we don't want our COLA adjustments to be too far greater than this, because that means inflation is running way hotter than it even is right now. But I don't know if we want it to be zero either, right? Having some level of inflation means that the economy is running at some good clip, and so having some type of cost of living adjustment should be necessary. Now, just to get an idea of where these cost of living adjustments have been since 1976, right? Back in 1976, the cost of living adjustment was 8% for Social Security, and it was 5.9% in 1978. There was a big spike in 1981, right? 1981, you saw a 14.3% Social Security cost of living adjustment on an annualized basis, 11.2% in 1982, 7.4% in 1983. And then that was the highest we had seen until this year. So since 1983, we haven't seen anything like this. We haven't seen anything this high when it comes to these cost of living adjustments. But the 80s was riddled with high inflation, right? The 80s was, when we were seeing a lot of big economic growth. We were coming off of the Carter administration. We were coming into the Reagan administration, and the Carter administration was riddled with a lot of the problems that we see with the Biden administration when it comes to unemployment and inflation and things of the like. Now, obviously, in 2010, we saw the COLA adjustment was zero. In 2016, we also saw zero. 2017 was only 0.3%. So we've seen really low COLA adjustments in the past 10, 15 years, other than 2009. But again, now we're back to the highest that we've seen since 1983. So these cost of living adjustments are an often overlooked feature of the Social Security program that aim to help protect the buying power for beneficiaries, right? This is a benefit that if you tried to buy it in the private market, you would find it quite costly, right? Getting these type of adjustments on any type of financial product. Yet some, including the Senior Citizens League, a nonpartisan senior group, have argued that the way the COLA is measured is not keeping up with the rising costs that seniors pay. Right, Social Security benefits have gone up by 55% over the last 21 years, according to the group, while healthcare costs rose by 145%. Now, this, I think, is very, very interesting because, especially as a young person, right? I don't think so much about healthcare costs. That doesn't cross my mind so much when I'm thinking about inflation. But for retirees, healthcare is one of the biggest costs that they have on their plate. And it has increased by 90% more than the Social Security benefit has. And housing went up 118% during that time. So if these individuals had bought new houses, or if they're renting somewhere, or if they're even choosing to live in an assisted living or nursing home, those costs have risen far more than their Social Security benefits have. Okay, now, if we just take a look at what the benefits are going to look like before the cost of living adjustment and then after the cost of living adjustment, on average, this is what it's going to look like. So for all retired workers, before the cost of living adjustment, $1,565 average, after $1,657. The aged couple both receiving benefits is going to go from $25.99 to $27.53. The widowed mother and two children goes from $3,009 to $3,187. The aged widower alone is going from $1,467 to $1,553. A disabled worker, spouse, and one or more children is going from $2,250 to $2,383, and then all disabled workers is going from $1,282 to $1,358. So we have to keep in mind that Social Security is not just for retirees, even though that's who we're focusing on here. It can also be for disabled workers and things of the like. So this is a situation where you are seeing these across-the-board increases after this cost of living adjustment. But the question still remains, is it enough? Now, the Social Security Administration currently uses the CPI with urban wage earners and clerical workers, or CPIW, right? So CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. And all it is an index based on this particular basket of goods, right? And the price of this particular basket of goods over time. It tracks the price of this basket, and as the prices increase, then that becomes our marker for what inflation is. Now, proposals have suggested using another measure, the CPIE, right? So this is the Consumer Price Index for the elderly instead, because it may better reflect seniors' costs, and this is very true, especially for Social Security, that this may be a better way to go about it. However, the CPIE does not always grow faster than the CPIW. In the past 12 months, the CPIW increased more than the CPIE. Okay. Other measures, including a changed CPI, have also been suggested. The challenge is finding a measure that best matches the prices that seniors pay. Notably, any change to the way that COLAs are measured would have to be authorized by Congress. In the meantime, beneficiaries are poised to see the 5.9% bump to their benefits start in their January of 2022 checks. How large that increase will be as we move forward will depend on the size of their benefits, quite obviously. Now, one important way that retirement beneficiaries can increase their benefits, and thus also the COLAs that they receive each year, is waiting to claim. So if you don't know about Social Security, the way that it works is that you are able, as a retiree, to start collecting benefits at age 62. Now, this is reliant on you paying into Social Security at least 40 quarters is what the rule has typically been, and that's obviously 10 years of work. But the age 62 is when you can begin taking the benefits, and then you can choose to forego the benefits at age 62 and take them maybe at age 63 or 64 or 65, right? But you would get more by waiting every single year. And so some people wait until what we call the full retirement age, right? And that full retirement age nowadays is basically 67 or 66 in some months or something like that. And you would get the full benefit that you could get, and you could be able to continue to work and make income along with taking that particular Social Security amount. And then from age 67, you basically get 3 more years where you can get an 8% a year increase up to age 70, which is your maximum benefit if you can put it off that long. Now, a lot of retirees, they can't put it off that long, unfortunately. But if you could, that's going to not only increase the original check that you get, but every cost of living adjustment that you get is it's a percentage, right? And since it's a percentage, then the increase is going to be greater in dollars every single time you get a cost of living adjustment, since you started with a higher dollar value when you initially took your Social Security. Now, it's still the most advantageous strategy to wait so long as a person is in good health. Now, this is true despite the fact that Social Security trust funds are at a risk of becoming depleted in 13 years. If Congress does not do anything to change it by that time, 78% of benefits would still be payable. So you're better off waiting because of that particular inflation adjustment. Now, it's a whole nother thing to say that Congress is not going to have Social Security covered. I would be basically shocked if they fail to cover Social Security. You talk about something that is an across-the-board issue, right? It's an across-the-board win for both Democrats and Republicans, something that if they voted against, it would be wildly unpopular. Medicare and Social Security are two of those things, right? Even the conservatives who say, hey, we only want things to be privately owned and privately operated and save for our own retirement and don't take our money and give us negative rates of return on it, which is literally what Social Security has done over the long period of time. Even they, as they get older, they're like, give me my Social Security, right? I've earned this. It's my entitlement, which it's called an entitlement program. But nonetheless, right, this is what the inflation adjustment is going to look like, and this is how it can potentially impact retirees. Now, how's it going to impact everybody else? Okay, well, naturally, there is a way that we have to pay for these increases in the cost of living, right? You can't just have this COLA adjustment and then not pay for it somehow. We have to obviously pay for it somehow. And naturally what we'll do is we'll likely increase the national debt, right? An increased deficit, thus increased taking out of debt, and then you would see these increases in Social Security payments. So we're going into debt to increase the payments to our retirees, which is a little sad, but ultimately it is what the United States has gotten quite used to doing. Okay, now, ultimately, who pays for the debt? The taxpayer. So the burden ultimately does fall on the taxpayer over the long run in order to keep up with the cost of living adjustments. And I mean, you have these retirees that, they're going to get this increase. But if you're living on Social Security income, it's just not that much, right? So they have much bigger problems than just, hey, let me get this little bit of increase. Yeah, it's like, throwing the dog a bone, but it's not necessarily giving it a meal, right? It's not giving it sustainable, ability to take care of itself. It's, just saying, hey, here's you a little something. Don't bother us, right? That's what it really seems like when they're giving out these cost of living adjustments. Now, is it better than no adjustment? Of course, but it is ultimately funded by the taxpayer, and it's not super significant, even at a 5.9% rate of return. Now, with most retirement plans, right, or with most investment accounts, I would hope that over a long period of time, you could make over a 5.9% rate of return. Now, I looked here, and in this article, it says over the past 21 years, Social Security benefits have gone up by 55%. Okay, so I thought, all right, 55% is how much Social Security has gone up in benefit over the last 21 years. How much has the stock market gone up in value over the last 21 years? So I said, okay, let me look from January of 1999 all the way to December of 2020, right? And so if you look at just the returns of the S&P 500 over that time period, right? The S&P 500 with dividends reinvested has returned 344.77% or a 7.047 annualized rate of return. So you tell me that even in a time where we saw two major market crashes, right? And I guess if you include, the coronavirus crash, three major market crashes over a 21-year period, the S&P 500 still destroyed the increase in the Social Security cost of living adjustments. Now, what's my point by saying that? My point is that this is not well-managed money anyway, right? We can do better. We can do better for ourselves on an inflation-adjusted basis than can the federal government. Now, obviously, we're forced into paying Social Security. We're forced into paying our taxes in that way for most people. You're just going to have to do it. But ultimately, do you want to be reliant on this money that's not growing much for you over time, that's not going to be a large amount of money, and I would, even posit that it's not going to be enough to sustain you. It's not even going to be enough to pay your basic bills in the very near future unless you cut your cost of living down pretty substantially in retirement. So here's my call to you guys, right? You read an article like this and you go, this is such a big deal because there are so many people who rely on it. There's so many people who rely on Social Security. There's so many people who rely on cost of living adjustments to just make that $92 difference, right? If $92 a month is changing your life, then we have bigger problems, okay? So yeah, have your Social Security. Take your Social Security. I'm not against you doing that, right? If the benefit is offered to you, you've paid into the benefit, then by all means, right? Take the Social Security. But if that's all that you have, we're in trouble. So what do we have to do as young people in response to this, right? We see that these cost of living adjustments are occurring. We see that there is this, Social Security trust fund that is getting constantly depleted. What do? Well, we take our retirement into our own hands, right? We save and invest aggressively for our future. And it is undoubtedly, unless it's sitting in cash, going to outperform Social Security. And like I said, Social Security over a long period of time has offered a negative real return. So even cash might beat what you paid into Social Security over time. But we want to invest our money. We want to grow our money and have adequate monies to where we can say, I don't need Social Security. Social Security is just icing on the cake. It is not the cake. It is not the meal. Right? The meal and the cake needs to be the money that you have set aside, the money that you have saved, the money that you are growing for yourself and pulling income off of that you have plenty of to live your retirement dreams and to take care of everything that you need to take care of. Look, I don't hate on elderly people who this is what they have. Social Security is what they've relied on. This is what they have, and they just have to make it work, right? Obviously, they just have to make it work. They have to cut down their lifestyle to the point where the Social Security benefits work for them. But for the vast majority of us, we have the ability to learn from this. We have the ability to look around and go, oh, when I rely on the federal government to take care of me in retirement, it's not a pretty retirement. Even when they're throwing me this bone of a cost of living adjustment, it is not a comfortable retirement. It's not a pretty retirement, right? Wouldn't you love to get Social Security payments and be able to give those Social Security payments, or just be able to just reinvest them, right? Or be able to do something with them, spend them on something frivolous, and not have to worry about that paying your light bill, and not having to worry about that paying for your water bill, or paying for your groceries, or whatever, right? That would be fantastic, and that's something that if Social Security is still around when I get around to it, right? I hope to be able to give my Social Security check away. I hope to be able to take it and be like, I don't need this money because I have plenty, right? I have plenty that I am making sure that me and my family have. Now, also, this is the case that when we were talking about waiting to take your Social Security benefit and how long you should wait and blah 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 blah. The only reason people shouldn't wait is that they don't have the money to sustain themselves until 70, right? If you're 62 years old and you have plenty of money setting aside to take care of your family, take care of everything that's going on in your life, why would you sit and go, hey, let me go ahead and take that Social Security? Doesn't make any sense, right? We would want to, just wait it out because we can. Because we're comfortable. We have what we need. Now, some may say, okay, well, but you could take that at age 62 and not pull as much off your investments. And that's true, right? If you're talking from just maximization of whatever you have over a long period of time, then that's perfectly true. But I don't want to be in a position where I have to. I don't want to be in a position where I'm like, okay, I'll just pull this much off of my investments and start taking my Social Security, and that's what's going to sustain me over the next 30 years of my life. That just sounds like a horrendous thing, right? It doesn't sound so bad to many, right? You come up with a number, and if this is where you're at, I don't want you to feel shamed, right? I don't want you to feel like that this is the worst thing ever. Obviously, if you can take care of yourself in retirement, then by all means. But if you're waiting on and relying on the government to grow the amount of money that they give you, you might be waiting and relying on it for some time, right? And just waiting and it not coming. And this is not what we want, right? We want to be able to make these adjustments ourselves. Because think about it. If you have your own money growing for you and it's growing at a pretty good clip, right? And if your money's been invested over the past year, 2, 12, whatever, right? You've made outstanding returns, right? If you've had the money that you have invested just in the S&P 500 over the last 5 years, you've over doubled your money in just a 5-year period, right? And so having that money set aside, you could have easily increased the amount that you were taking off of that in your retirement by a greater clip than what Social Security was increasing your check with them, right? By many times over a greater clip than what Social Security had you increasing with them. So I just want you to understand that it's not all a matter of, hey, Social Security is the only game in town. It's the best game in town. It's guaranteed. It's so awesome. No, I don't want you to have to rely on something that you have no control over, because ultimately you have no control over the cost of living adjustment. If they just Congress decided tomorrow to just get rid of the cost of living adjustment, it's gone, right? And, prices would increase and you'd still be getting a fixed payment. Or if Congress decided to cut Social Security benefits, then guess what? They cut the benefits. Nothing you can do about it, right? So ultimately, I don't want you to be reliant on Congress. I don't want you to be reliant on things that are out of your control when it comes to retirement. I want you to be very in control. I want you to have your own money. I want you to have your own nest egg and then be able to live off of it very comfortably with Social Security just being something extra. And believe you me, I understand that everybody's life is different. And I understand that many of you may be nearing retirement and you're looking forward to the day that you can take your Social Security. I get it. Right? I totally get it that many of you have banked on this for a long, long, long time. But I'm telling you, the party, if it's not over, it's coming very near to the end. And I'm not saying that Social Security is going to end. That's not what I'm saying, even though, gosh, the funding for that doesn't even look good, right? But what I'm saying is that this time where, Social Security is something that, your grandparents got, and that was their only check. They got that in a pension check, and that was retirement for them, and it took care of them perfectly fine. Those days are over, right? We don't have those days anymore. And just like with the fact that there's no pension anymore for most people, just like that's the case, it's also going to be the case that Social Security is not going to be so substantial that it's going to make a big impact on our lives. Because just think about, these cost of living adjustments and them being based on your income, and the fact that they are based on your income, the initial benefit that you get, that is going to have some bearing on the amount that you get over time. But you're telling me that it's just going to keep up with your costs over time perfectly, or that it's going to keep up with the growth of wages over time perfectly? I would say probably not. And not only would I say probably not, that would just be a bigger strain on the Social Security Trust Fund when we already have quite a large strain on it as it is, okay? So nonetheless, if $92 a month is a problem for you, then again, we have bigger problems. But let us, as the next generation of investors, the next generation of retirees one of these days, let us be prepared. Let us not look at Social Security like it is the golden egg, right? Let it just be the thing that is there, and it's like, hey, this is all right, whatever, it's extra money, I guess that's fine, right? But don't look at it as this is the golden egg, this is the thing I've been waiting on forever, right? If you're thinking of Social Security that way, then you have a distorted view of what Social Security is, what it's going to be, and exactly how your retirement life is going to shake out on the other side of Social Security. So that's what's going on with Social Security now. We'll see how this continues to unfold in years to come, because nobody's here saying that inflation is definitely going to slow down in the coming years, though it may, right? We may be seeing boosts like this in the cost of living adjustment for the next few years, and we may not, right? But ultimately, every boost is going to be funded by the taxpayer. Every boost is going to be pegged towards inflation, and inflation is only going to eat away at the value of our money. And if you're getting fixed payments, regardless, right, of if you're getting these cost of living adjustments, again, these are reflexive, right? They are reacting to this particular increase in inflation. So right now, when the cost of goods is increased, they still haven't seen increases in their check. So inflation's still eating away at the value of their money, and the catch-up is on the back end, which by then it's too late. Those prices have already set in, if not increased even more, okay? So it's good faith. It's Congress wanting to do a good thing, I guess. But ultimately, it is not going to be the savior of your money and of the money that you have invested over a long period of time. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully this discussion better communicates what Social Security is to you, how Social Security works, and then ultimately how we should think about Social Security moving forward as a generation of individuals who don't have a lot of guarantees as far as the money that we're going to have for retirement, and we have to take it into our own hands, be aggressive, invest aggressively, and look up and don't care that Social Security is there later on, and be like, if it's there, great. If it's not, great. And I think that's the best attitude we can have. But you only have the luxury of having that attitude if you have invested money for yourself and done the right things financially moving forward, which is what I'm trying to help you do every single day. So thanks for watching this video. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions, and you and I can begin working together, pushing towards your long-term financial goals and ultimately pushing you on towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual watching or listening to this show on a day-to-day basis. So tune in tomorrow as I continue talking about personal finance topics that I think can be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.